President Trump just a short time ago declared on social media that the termination of Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, quote, cannot come fast enough.
The president originally nominated Jerome Powell for this post. So does he even really have the power unilaterally by him?
President Donald Trump threatened to remove Jerome Powell as the chair of the Federal Reserve and expressed his displeasure.
Tensions are gripping the United States. Tensions at a magnitude not seen in years. These tremors are shaking everything from financial markets to the political landscape. No president in American history has been as openly dismissive of his own appointed central bank governor as Donald Trump. Yet, as always, Trump remains an exception to the norm. The Federal Reserve, long seen as a symbol of democratic stability and institutional independence, is now at the center of a storm.
As President of the United States, I will always put America first.
Trump, never one to shy away from controversy, has directly challenged the sacred principle of the Fed's autonomy. As President of the United States,
if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast.
I will always put America first, he declares. But what does this mean when America first translates to political interference in monetary policy?
It's my honor to announce my nomination of Jerome Powell to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve.
From the moment he appointed Jerome Powell as Fed chairman in 2017, Trump assumed he had chosen a compliant figure, someone who would align with his economic vision. Instead, Powell asserted his independence. He raised interest rates, pursued data-driven decisions, and sought to shield the Fed from political influence. This did not sit well with Trump. By 2018, the tension had spilled into public view. Powell is more dangerous than China, Trump said at one point, summing up the extraordinary hostility between the sitting president and the head of the central bank. Trump's outburst,
If I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast.
"If I want him out, he'll be out real fast," have sparked concerns about the politicization of economic institutions. This is more than a personal vendetta. It may well be the beginning of a political upheaval with global repercussions. Imagine the scenario. The chairman of the world's most influential central bank dismissed not for corruption or incompetence, but for resisting political pressure. What would that mean for the dollar, for interest rates, for inflation, for global investor confidence? It all hinges on a question. Can Trump actually fire Jerome Powell? The answer is murky. The Federal Reserve Act allows for the removal of board members for cause, a term traditionally reserved for ethical violations or misconduct, not mere policy disagreements. No Fed chair has ever been dismissed over interest rate policy alone.
Well, and I think I have a better instinct than, in many cases, people that would be on the Federal Reserve or the chairman.
Trump and his advisors reportedly considered Powell's removal before, but stepped back due to legal uncertainties and potential backlash. Now, as a return to the presidency becomes more plausible, that conversation may resurface. Trump's nominee for Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, has already hinted at discussions about replacing Powell should Trump win again. Meanwhile, the U.S. Supreme Court is reviewing a case that could impact this very issue. Though the case concerns another independent agency, its verdict may affect whether the president can remove heads of institutions like the federal. At the center of the debate is a 1935 precedent, Humphrey's Executor versus United States, which limits such executive authority. A conservative shift in interpretation could embolden Trump's efforts. Economists are warning of a grim scenario. In countries where central banks lack independence, Turkey, Argentina, Venezuela, economic chaos has often followed. Rapid interest rate cuts, currency devaluation, and runaway inflation became common. Could the United States, long the bastion of financial stability, fall into a similar trap? The Wall Street Journal recently asked, could firing Powell lead to the Argentinization of the U.S.? A bold analogy, perhaps, but the concerns are real. Undermining the Fed's autonomy would rattle global markets and weaken confidence in the dollar, the world's reserve currency. Trump's frustration lies in Powell's resistance to slashing rates during times of growth. Protectionist policies, tariff wars, and tax cuts, hallmarks of Trump's economic approach, fueled inflationary pressures, especially as import costs rose. Research suggests these policies have burdened American households with thousands of dollars in additional annual expenses. Powell, meanwhile, has stayed focused on the Fed's dual mandate, price stability and maximum employment. When the pandemic hit, he cut rates to zero. But as inflation surged in 2022, he reversed course and introduced sharp rate hikes to regain control, moves that angered Trump. We manage the economy based on data, long-term goals, and risk analysis. Powell has said, politics has no influence on our decisions. But Trump's counterpressure has had a ripple effect. Investors, wary of possible instability, are rebalancing portfolios. The dollar has weakened. Inflation fears have resurfaced, and questions about America's institutional reliability are growing louder. A significant drop in the dollar's value could increase the cost of imported goods, raise inflation, and complicate efforts to manage the U.S. debt, now approaching 120% of GDP. It could even spark interest in alternative reserve currencies, from China's yuan to digital assets like Bitcoin. If Trump regains power and installs a more compliant Fed chair, monetary policy could fall under direct White House influence. This might bring short-term gains in the stock market, but it would likely unleash long-term instability, inflation, and erode the Fed's credibility. Across the Atlantic, the European Central Bank is watching nervously. The Fed's policy affects the euro-dollar balance and could have geopolitical ramifications. As Europe bears more defense costs and trade tensions simmer, the EU may reconsider its own financial strategies if trust in the dollar fades. Historically, no U.S. president has taken legal steps to oust a Fed chair. Neither Clinton with Greenspan nor Bush with Bernanke dared to do so. The risks were simply too great. Trump, however, has never shied away from breaking precedent. If he succeeds here, it could redefine the boundaries of presidential power and institutional independence. Public opinion is divided. Some Republicans believe Powell is holding back economic growth by refusing to lower rates. Others fear the collapse of democratic norms if the central bank becomes a political tool. Even if Powell survives, increasing Trump-appointed members on the board could limit his power. In essence, this is more than a clash between two powerful men. It's a test of America's economic principles. The outcome will shape not only inflation and employment policies, but the very foundation of global market trust. Powell once summed it up best. Our independence is based on the law. Our duty is to serve the American people, not the political agenda of the moment. Time will tell whether this principle endures, or whether political pressure will rewrite the rules of economic governance. For now, the world watches anxiously. Who do you think is right, Trump or Powell? Or are all Americans and the global economy the real losers in this clash? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more insights like this. Thank you for watching.